Your body is already making a hormone that does almost exactly what Ozempic does. It controls hunger. It regulates blood sugar. It even slows digestion, and you were born with it. In this video, you are going to find out exactly what that hormone is, what it does inside your body, why most people have almost none of it active right now, and the specific things that switch it back on. Stay to the end because the final fact changes everything you thought you knew about weight loss. If you leave now, you leave without the most important piece. Ozempic became a cultural phenomenon almost overnight. Celebrities, doctors, headlines everywhere. But here is the part the conversation keeps skipping. The drug works by mimicking something your body already produces naturally, a hormone called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, and understanding what it actually does will genuinely surprise you. GLP-1 is released by your gut, specifically by cells in your small intestine, every single time you eat. Within minutes of food entering your digestive system, GLP-1 starts doing something remarkable. It signals your pancreas to release insulin. It tells your liver to slow down glucose production. And critically, it travels to your brain and tells it, you are full. Stop eating. Here is what makes GLP-1 so extraordinary as a natural system. It does not just handle one function, it manages a whole cascade. First, it slows gastric emptying, meaning food leaves your stomach more slowly, so you feel full for longer. Second, it reduces the urge to keep eating by acting directly on the brain's reward and hunger centers. Third, it lowers post-meal blood sugar spikes. Now here is the part that stops most people cold. GLP-1 has an almost absurdly short lifespan inside your body. After your gut releases it, an enzyme called DPP-4 destroys it in under 2 minutes. That is it. 2 minutes. The entire natural version of this powerful hormone is gone almost as fast as it appears.
Wait, 2 minutes? So your body makes this incredible hormone and immediately destroys it?
That short lifespan is actually the core reason drugs like Ozempic were developed. They are engineered to be GLP-1 receptor agonists, molecules that look enough like GLP-1 to bind to the same receptors, but are designed to survive for days instead of minutes. That is the entire pharmaceutical innovation, a longer-lasting version of something you already make. Before we get to that trigger, you need to understand why so many people have chronically suppressed GLP-1 levels to begin with. Research points to a consistent pattern. People who eat highly processed diets, who are sedentary, who have disrupted sleep cycles. These factors are all associated with blunted GLP-1 responses. Your gut cells that produce GLP-1 essentially become less responsive. The signal gets quieter and quieter over time. If this is already changing how you think about hunger and weight, you are going to love what comes next. Hit subscribe and join the Curious Fox family, because we dig into exactly this kind of science every single week. The stuff that actually changes how you see your own body. Now, back to that trigger. So what does GLP-1 actually feel like when it is working properly? Researchers describe it as a natural brake on appetite. Not a total off switch, a brake. You eat, you feel satisfied sooner. The urgency to keep eating just fades. People with well-functioning GLP-1 responses naturally stop eating at appropriate portions without fighting themselves. The hunger signal simply does not escalate the way it does for people with blunted responses. Here is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. Scientists studying GLP-1 discovered something that has significant implications for how we think about the diet and pharmaceutical industry. When they mapped which foods and behaviors most powerfully stimulate natural GLP-1 release, the results were clear, actionable, and almost entirely free. And yet almost none of that information reached mainstream public health messaging. We will get to what that means in a moment. The foods that most powerfully stimulate GLP-1 release share a few common features: high fiber content, significant protein, and something called resistant starch. When these components reach your small intestine and then your colon, they interact with gut bacteria and specialized cells in ways that drive GLP-1 secretion significantly higher than processed foods do. The difference between a meal that triggers a strong GLP-1 response and one that barely triggers any is enormous. Resistant starch is the interesting one here. Most people have never heard of it. It is a type of starch that your small intestine cannot fully digest, so it passes through and feeds your gut bacteria, which then produce compounds that stimulate GLP-1 cells.
So, cooling down cooked potatoes actually makes them better for your hormones? That is genuinely wild!
Protein is equally important in this story. Research consistently shows that high-protein meals generate significantly stronger GLP-1 responses than low-protein meals with the same calorie count. This is part of why high-protein diets tend to reduce hunger more effectively, not just because protein takes longer to digest, but because it actively drives GLP-1 secretion. Your gut is literally responding to the quality and composition of what you eat, not just the quantity. Now, the trigger. The one specific thing that nearly doubles GLP-1 activity within minutes. It is exercise. And not just any exercise, specifically moderate aerobic movement. Walking briskly, cycling, swimming. Studies show that GLP-1 levels rise noticeably during and immediately after moderate aerobic exercise, independent of what you have eaten. Your muscles and gut communicate in ways we are still mapping, and movement is one of the most direct switches for this hormone. The exercise finding is particularly significant because it means movement is not just burning calories. It is actively changing the hormonal environment inside you. A 20-minute brisk walk is not just exercise. It is a hormonal intervention.
A walk is a hormonal intervention. I need everyone to hear that sentence.
Sleep is the factor that almost nobody connects to GLP-1, and the research here is striking. Poor sleep, specifically getting less than 6 hours or having disrupted sleep cycles, is associated with significantly blunted GLP-1 responses the following day. This means that a bad night of sleep is not just making you tired and irritable. There is another layer to this that most people miss entirely. Your gut microbiome, the trillions of bacteria living in your intestines, plays a direct role in how well your GLP-1 cells function. Certain strains of gut bacteria produce short-chain fatty acids when they break down fiber. Those short-chain fatty acids directly stimulate the GLP-1 producing cells in your colon. A healthier, more diverse gut microbiome means a better functioning GLP-1 system. Here is where it gets really interesting. Because everything we have covered so far, the diet triggers, the exercise response, the sleep connection, the microbiome link, these are all well documented in research literature. And yet, the public conversation about GLP-1 is almost entirely focused on the injectable drug version. The natural pathway barely gets mentioned. And the reason for that is something researchers have started speaking about more openly in recent years. The pharmaceutical GLP-1 story is genuinely impressive science. Taking a 2-minute hormone and engineering it to last a week is a real achievement. But the conversation it generated almost completely eclipsed the underlying biology. When Ozempic became headline news, the framing was almost always, revolutionary new drug. Almost never. Here is the natural system this drug is mimicking, and here is how to work with that system directly. Some researchers have begun describing naturally optimized GLP-1 function as a realistic target. Not a replacement for medication in people who need it medically, but as a foundation that everyone can work with. The argument is straightforward. If your natural GLP-1 system is already functioning well, your appetite regulation, blood sugar control, and metabolic health all improve. This is upstream intervention. Fix the system before it breaks down enough to need pharmaceutical support. There is something specific about fermented foods in this picture that deserves attention. Research into the gut microbiome and GLP-1 has found that fermented foods, yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, appear to support the bacterial strains that most effectively produce the short-chain fatty acids, driving GLP-1 secretion. This is not a minor effect.
So, kimchi might be doing something your gut actually needs for this specific hormone?
Now for what the scientists discovered that changes the pharmaceutical picture entirely. Here is the finding that has started a quiet but significant conversation in metabolic research. When people make sustained changes, high-fiber diet, regular moderate exercise, improved sleep, fermented food consumption, their natural GLP-1 responses improve measurably over weeks to months. The system is not fixed, it is trainable. The trainability point matters enormously because of the timeline involved. GLP-1 cells in your gut are not static. They respond to their environment. Feed your microbiome well consistently, and the bacterial composition shifts within weeks. Move your body regularly, and the gut-muscle axis strengthens its signaling. Improve sleep, and the hormonal suppression lifts. Each change compounds on the others. There is a practical question hiding inside all of this. If your GLP-1 system is already working well, robust microbiome, regular movement, good sleep, high-fiber diet, what does hunger actually feel like differently? Researchers who study this describe a consistent pattern in people with strong GLP-1 function. Hunger rises gradually and clearly after meals, without the sharp urgency or cravings that characterize disrupted metabolic signaling. Eating to fullness happens naturally and earlier. One more detail worth highlighting here. Bitter foods, specifically dark leafy greens, bitter melon, and certain herbal compounds, appear to stimulate what researchers call bitter taste receptors in the gut. These receptors, when activated, directly trigger GLP-1 release.
So bitter greens activate receptors that trigger the same hormone as Ozempic? That is actually insane!
The stress connection is the final piece most people do not know. Chronic psychological stress elevates cortisol, and sustained high cortisol is associated with suppressed GLP-1 signaling and increased ghrelin, the hunger hormone that works in the opposite direction to GLP-1. This means that chronic stress is essentially running two processes simultaneously, reducing your body's natural appetite brake while increasing the gas pedal. Stress-driven overeating is not a character flaw. Before the final reveal, and this final fact is genuinely the most surprising thing in this entire video. If you want more of this kind of science broken down into something real and useful, subscribe to Curious Fox right now. We cover the biology that actually changes how you live. The best fact is 30 seconds away. Do not miss it. Here is the final fact, the one that reframes everything. GLP-1 was discovered in 1983, decades before Ozempic existed. And in the years immediately following its discovery, researchers proposed that dietary and lifestyle interventions targeting natural GLP-1 function could form the basis of metabolic health management. Those proposals were scientifically sound. The biology was clear. But the path from that discovery to a widely understood public health strategy essentially never happened. Let that sink in. The molecule Ozempic mimics has been scientifically understood for over 40 years. The lifestyle pathways that boost it naturally have been documented for decades. A $100 billion industry was built on engineering a longer-lasting copy of something your gut already makes. To be completely clear, this is not an argument against medication for people who need it medically. GLP-1 drugs have shown real clinical benefits for people with serious metabolic conditions, and that is legitimate medicine. What this is an argument for understanding the natural system first. Know what your body already does. Know what switches it on. Know what suppresses it. That knowledge belongs to you regardless of what treatment path you take. GLP-1. Discovered in 1983, activated by food, movement, sleep, and your microbiome, suppressed by processed diets, stress, and poor sleep, and now the centerpiece of one of the fastest growing pharmaceutical categories in history, built on mimicking what you were born with. If this video changed how you see your own biology, share it with someone who needs to hear it.